So my name is Eric Goff. I'm on the board of Aura. That's aura-atx.org. And we are a grassroots nonprofit focused on creating abundant housing, better transportation for Austin. And in 2014, we were the best grassroots group by Austin Chronicle readers. In 2015, with your help, we're going to be the best grassroots group by Austin Chronicle readers, because I assume that every reader is in the room tonight. This is such a big audience. A little bit about Aura. We got started as Austinites for Urban Rail Action. It related to the plans to build a new urban rail plan, and we got a lot of feedback to the group on having a data-driven process that maximizes mobility. We ended up opposing the Prop 1 campaign, and so this year one of the things we'll be focused on is coming up with a transit vision that we hope Austin can adopt, so we can quickly move forward past the November election and make sure we have great mass transit, great public transit, and great ways to get around in Austin. So transit, like most other things in cities, starts with great land use. And that's why Aura is focused to a great deal on having excellent land use policies in Austin. And it's really easy to make improvements to the land use policy in Austin because they are so terrible. It's a very low bar to be able to say we could do better than what we're doing right now. If you see this map behind me on the wall, you can see that the vast majority of central Austin land is zoned single family. And what that means is that effectively in most of Austin, including right outside of downtown, you can only build a house with a yard. You can't build apartments, you can't build row houses like you see in every great city in the world. Imagine you're in a great city in the world. You can go ahead and close your eyes with me. And you're in the downtown area. There's lots of vibrant things going on. People out on the street. There are sidewalk cafes. There are people that live above the sidewalk cafes. And then you walk just outside of the main area and you find a residential area that is also walkable. Now, can you picture where that is in Austin? I can't picture that very well. And the problem is...
Eric, how many square feet of land do you have to have a residence in Austin?
Sure. So the problem is that in order to have a single house, you have to have a minimum of 5,750 square feet on the property, and you've got to be surrounded by effectively grass. So we've recreated a tiny version of the English manor house. And I don't know if you're aware, but generally that's a very Victorian way of looking at the world. And now that we're in the 21st century to the 19th century, I think we can live closer together. We can have places that are walkable and that have more density, so that 5,750 of square foot of land, instead of being required for one family, can be divided among 3 families or 3 sets of roommates. And then at that point, to connect it back to a great transit system, when you fund your transit system the way we do, based on sales taxes, you have more people living in the area. That's more sales taxes, more revenue for a better transit system, and more people that will get on that bus or that train line and pay the fare. And so you're able to support a much better, much more effective mass transit system with better land use. So at Aura this year, we're working on our transit vision that will maximize mobility and have our streets used by the highest and best use. So on streets where there's a lot of bus traffic, we want to make sure that buses can move down the street easily. That means their own lane. There are streets in Austin that during rush hour have more people moving by bus, or almost as many people moving by bus as there are in cars. And if you have a third of the people moving by bus on a 2-lane street, you'd think that you want to make sure that buses can move effectively down that street. And if we do that, we can make sure that we have buses that are reliable and people want to use because they're not stuck behind the guy in front of them and angry. Our cars aren't just in our streets, though. They're also on the homes and apartments in Austin. We require that homes and apartments have a minimum amount of parking per person. And as someone in the audience said last year, we should have a city that focuses on housing people instead of storing cars. That was Chris Riley, by the way. and that's just the essence of what it means to have a great city. When you have a city that's focused on the people that live there instead of the cars that people get around in, you just almost inherently create a city that's a great place to live. So on land use, get back to that and wrap up. There are a few things that are happening. One in the near term is granny flats. Granny flats, garage apartments, back houses. You've probably seen these, maybe lived in one. It turns out they're pretty difficult to build anymore. You have to have, again, that minimum amount of parking that I talked about. You've got to have a large lot. You have to have setback requirements, driveways. You have to make sure, basically, that it's almost impossible to build under the current rules. But this is the kind of invisible density that can make sure that people can live in neighborhoods instead of having to move out to Pflugerville or Round Rock or somewhere else and then drive in. And we're pushing hard this year. We want to make it so that it's easy to build 50,000 or 100,000 new garage apartments in Austin by getting rid of the minimum lot size, reducing the parking requirements, and making sure that people can live where they want to live, and that the homeowners that live there can make a return on building a granny flat so that they can pay their ever-rising property taxes. We're also working on this thing called Code Next, which you may have read about in the news. The short version is that, remember that land development code that I told you is very complicated and designed for failure, and it's not very hard to say you improved it because it's so terrible? Well, we're in the middle of a land development rewrite that if the status quo and the people that are currently going to those meetings and prefer for Austin to be the way it was when they forgot how it was when they moved here, then we're going to have very little change through that Code Next process. And so in order to make sure that we can create a walkable environment that's affordable, that you don't have to have a car in if you don't want it, and that you can share with your friends and neighbors and walk out onto the street and have just a vibrant place instead of a place full of cars that you never meet your neighbors. We're working hard to make sure that we can build additional density, also the missing middle, inside neighborhoods. So that's row houses that are all next to each other, like you've seen in Chicago or St. Louis or Brooklyn. That's more duplexes, that's corner stores, so you can just walk down to the corner store and buy your produce. And all that currently that I just said, all those things that sound nice, are illegal in most of Austin. So we need your help to create an affordable Austin that you don't have to have a car to get around in, that you can afford to live in, and that you can afford to be weird in. Because the only way to keep Austin weird is to make sure the people that don't make much money can afford to live here and keep being weird. So auraatx.org, that's aura-atx.org. We need your help to make sure we have a better Austin for tomorrow. Thanks.
You can sign up here.
If you want to sign up, you can sign up right over here.